You're on the best of the morning. Barnes, Leslie, and Jimmy. 99X.
Now we have to back the show up and get to some unanswered matters. One being Trixie, formerly of a Hooked Up program number 77257, which is about 3 weeks ago.
This is the episode where Chris and Trixie went to the Prince concert. Chris somehow was able to convince everybody in the club that he was Kenny G. Trixie allegedly just took off in the middle of disappeared.
He went looking, he went calling to find Trixie nowhere.
Right. She got very bent out of shape when he accidentally spilled wine, and she kind of disappeared into the night.
After being paged several times.
Right. By her work, she's a paralegal or is trying to be a paralegal and had an emergency midnight Sunday night case.
Let's be like Montel. Welcome, Trixie, to the show.
Yeah! We're going to have there's going to be a graphic under your name. You know, Trixie walked out on Chris.
Okay, hello, Trixie.
Hello.
Trixie just showed up and sat here for a little while until we said, who are you? And she said, Trixie.
Did you happen to hear that morning that we had Chris on the air? Did you hear the whole story of what he said?
I heard absolutely none of it.
Well, he didn't, obviously he didn't paint a very good picture, that you ignored him when you were inside Atlanta Live. You basically disappeared.
You heard about it, right?
I heard about it, yes.
So we want your side of the story.
First of all, he said, what does he look like?
He is forgive me for this. He is a bad cross between Tiny Tim and Michael Bolton.
Tiny Tim and Michael Bolton.
Bad
but
cross.
Somehow he was able to convince an entire club worth of people that he was Kenny G and
Looks
nobody...
nothing like Kenny G. Nothing like Kenny G.
Is he a nice guy?
Could be.
What wasn't nice about him that night?
Every time I spoke with him, all he did was talk about himself.
Well, if you had a lady on the other day about flirting, that's what guys do.
Right, no, we're not condoning.
Our first telephone conversation was 2 hours long, and all he did was talk about himself.
Is that like a red flag for you, though, that maybe this isn't someone I want to go out with?
Exactly.
Okay.
So then you gave him your address, and he said he'd pick you up when?
He said that he was going to get a limousine, and that he would pick me up around 8.
Okay, and was he on time?
He was a little late.
Okay.
Another
so he shows up.
Big red flag. And so he shows up, and, he's standing in the foyer talking to my parents, and it was just...
You thought it was prom night?
Yeah,
Okay.
Not even close.
The limo's outside, so you're talking to him?
We're talking, and we walk out to the limo, and I get in, and there's 2 Pizza Hut pizzas sitting in the floor of the limousine.
Gourmet.
And
now, there wasn't a lot of time to get to the show. That's why the Pizza Hut pizzas were there. I mean, he just wasn't being cheap. He just didn't have time to
But he could have picked me up earlier.
He claimed he couldn't get in touch with you all weekend.
No.
Right.
Yeah, he said you were MIA.
You never called back.
Okay. So he couldn't get a hold of you, and that's why he said that he picked you up late.
No.
Why no?
Because I talked to him at like 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon.
And said what? I'll see you at 8?
No, he said I'll see you at 8.
Okay.
He could have. He could have had the option of picking me up earlier.
Trixie, deep breath.
Okay.
Now wait. It's okay.
So, you're walking out the door to the limo, and at this point, are you thinking to yourself,
I'm thinking, dear
somehow
God,
I've got to ditch this guy tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so take us there. You get in the car.
So we get in the car, and he begins to talk about himself again.
What does he say?
He
I look like Kenny G, don't I, babe?
No, he just talks about his work, and not once in any conversation that we had did he ask me about me.
Okay.
Not once, not anything.
And that's a no-no.
That's
a big no-no, because I stated before the show ever started that the last guy I went out with was a big loser because all he did was want to talk about himself.
Okay.
Okay. So we get in the limo, and he sits this glass of wine behind my head. Well, the wine comes tumbling down
Red
all
or
over
white?
me. Oh, it was white.
White wine, okay.
White wine.
All right. Accident.
Well, you think he purposely did it?
I don't know. I mean, he didn't purposely knock it over, but I don't know that he purposely set it behind my head.
Okay, whatever.
Okay.
So it spills on
so
you.
it spills all over me, and I'm soaking wet.
What are you wearing?
I'm wearing black pants and a silk shirt.
Okay. So does it ruin the silk? I don't know.
It's at the cleaners.
I haven't worn my silk since the Bee Gees days, but okay. So it's at the cleaners.
So it's at the cleaners, and we're driving, and I've got the heat on me, and he's just yapping about himself, and I'm trying to get dry, and then we pull up over at Atlanta Live, and there's this huge line for us to get in, and I was just like, he goes, well, I guess we'll get out here, and I said, no, I'm soaking wet, and it's kind of cold outside. I'm not standing in the line.
How soaking can you be with a glass of wine?
It was a glass like this.
Oh, big old glass.
Yeah,
okay.
it wasn't like a wine glass.
Well, if you were already wet from the wine, then standing out in the rain shouldn't have made too much.
It wasn't raining.
No, it was cold.
It was
just
cold.
I thought he said
It was
not
cold
raining
and windy.
too.
Cold.
Okay.
And so the limo driver begins to tell this guy that he looks like Kenny G, and he gets all excited about that and goes and tells the guys behind Atlanta Live that he's got Kenny G in the limo.
Of all people.
Of all people. And the bad thing was he looked nothing like him. So we go in the back door and
Maybe
we don't...
that's the good thing.
That could be.
So we go in the back door and this little guy is like escorting us around and trying to, show us where the best place is to watch the show. And then this guy, a little bit later, brings up this girl, and the girl wants his autograph, and he sits there for about 20 minutes and talks to her and has his back to me the whole time.
So you're gagging.
Totally does not even acknowledge that I'm even standing there when he's
that's
talking
Weird
to this
Al,
girl.
not Kenny G. You should have thrown his shtick.
So, at this point, are you still trying to give him a chance? I'm confused.
I'm trying.
You're trying.
I'm just still waiting on him to ask about me.
Because you're going to see Prince, though. I mean,
Right.
look beyond Kenny G and see Prince.
It was very difficult.
Here's what's not making sense to me.
Oh, God.
Jimmy trying to read into something.
No, and you'll hopefully you'll take this actually as a compliment.
Okay.
You are really very beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
I can't believe that a guy would take you into a club and just like totally not want to parade you around
And ignore.
That just
I don't
doesn't
know.
make sense to
He's
me.
Kenny G.
That's true. He can get anybody he wants. He's the G, and he signed his name even. Remember the K and the squiggle.
Apparently, it went to his head that everybody thought he was Kenny G, so
Exactly.
he was enjoying the limelight.
Okay, so then apparently you get
Okay.
lots of beeps and you disappear.
And I was out of there.
Didn't say anything. You just kind of took a turn, and when he was Kenny G and you left.
I told him, I said, I'm going to use the phone. I didn't say I'd be back. Just,
Were these real beeps, or did you make this up?
no, they were real.
Who was beeping you?
My mother.
Was that the saving beeps? You said beep me about 8:15,
No.
8:30, 8:45.
No.
So clearly at this time you were just trying to wiggle out of that
Yeah.
situation.
I was. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you.
Good.
And so you did just disappear and didn't tell him where you were?
No, I didn't.
Now,
Did you go home? Because he
Yes.
apparently called your house, or did he go by, or something?
He called about 1:30
Okay.
to tell my mother that he lost track of me.
Now, here's a question. If you were on a date with a guy, and let's say he wasn't into it, let's say he didn't like you, okay, would it be okay for him then to just leave you, to disappear, or should you at least finish out the date and agree you won't go out again? I didn't like the guy, whatever.
Or just be honest and say,
Or
look,
just
I'm
say-
going to go.
Rather than,
mean-
you know what I'm saying? If a guy did that to you, what would you...
After what I went through,
It wasn't the worst thing in the world. So maybe he
Oh.
wasn't. So maybe he wasn't the date of the century. But come on, it's not like he was. Excuse me, Leslie. I just gestured and touched her breast.
That's nice.
Excuse me. This is the first time that's ever happened on this show.
How I would have handled it, I probably would have.
She
if I was
skips,
him.
goes right back to the... Fram's trying to keep composure.
Oh, the significant
Is-
other's on his way up.
I would have, because this sounds like a grueling date. I mean, I can feel what she went through. I would have just said something to him and then left.
I don't know.
Have you heard from him since then?
I have not.
So he hadn't called you up just to say, hey, sorry about what happened. Wish it could have worked out.
No.
Okay.
Now, because we are Oprah, Montel, Ricky,
All rolled into one.
this has been an incredible story, but I don't think we really will get to the nugget of this, to the MacGuffin, unless we have both parties to talk. So, bring in our guest, please. We have a guest here.
Let's bring out
Let's
Chris.
bring in
everybody.
Chris.
Hey, welcome to the Montel, Barnes, Leslie, and Jimmy show.
There's more to the story. This bit resumes after a brief intermission. More Best of the Morning X is coming up next on 99X.